Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. If I can have your attention, I need to make an announcement. I'm Jean Culpepper. I directed tonight's play. The circumstances surrounding our production are a little unusual. You see, I was very flattered when Billy St. John, who wrote Murders in the Air, as you probably noticed on your program, air is spelled H-E-I-R. Murders in the Air, get it? Yes, well, as I was saying, I was very flattered when Mr. St. John contacted me and asked me to direct his play's premiere production. Actually, it was a work in progress, and he made many changes and rewrites throughout the entire rehearsal period. While it was very exciting to work on a brand new piece, to tell you the truth, it put quite a strain on me, the playwright, and the cast.
You got that right.
Quiet, Charlie! Actors are to be unseen and unheard until curtains open. Well, you see, the cast and I are a little nervous because, well, the play's not quite finished yet. Oh, don't worry, the show must go on, as someone once said. I don't know who said it, but I'd love to get my hands around their neck. As I was saying, the show's not quite finished yet. You see, it's a murder mystery, and while many of the characters have a great motive to kill, well, you'll see who. Mr. St. John couldn't make up his mind about which character should be the killer. In fact, he wrote several different endings in which the various suspects were revealed to be the murder. We performed them all for him, and he still couldn't decide. And as it got closer and closer to opening night, the tension in the air, that is A-I-R, got so thick you could cut it with a knife. It got so bad that Mr. St. John had what I'm sure will prove to be a temporary breakdown. You see, the reason why he's not with us here tonight is, well, he's currently under heavy sedation in a very nice place with soft walls and lots of padding. Some people have all the luck. But the cast crew and I are here, and we are determined to provide an entertaining experience for you all, even if it kills us, get it? Well, this brings me to my main point of my being up here, to tell you guys that you are going to have to help us. If you'll look in your program, you'll see that we've printed a QR code. And as you watch the first act, you will see which characters have a great motive to kill a person who will indeed be dead by the time the act ends. Then during intermission, you guys will need to get out your QR codes, scan them, and there will be a ballot in which you will have to check which character you think is most likely to be the killer. We'll tally them quickly, and the cast will perform the scene that Mr. St. John wrote that has the character the majority of you chose as the killer. Or at least that's what we hope will happen. It got very confusing during rehearsal.
It's a wonder we didn't kill the playwright.
Quiet! Well, we might as well get started. I saved myself a seat right there in the front row to follow along in the script and help out if things get a little shaky, which they won't, but just in case. Are you ready, cast?
As ready as we're gonna be.
Well, we might as well get started then. Lights, places.
Nancy, please. You know Mr. Starkweather is resting in his bedroom just through that doorway. You mustn't startle him.
I'm sorry, Miss Withers, but you startled me.
My apologies, but I dare say a slight scare will do you no harm. However, a sudden shock to a man in his 90s in Mr. Starkweather's medical condition could prove fatal. Remember that, girl?
Yes, ma'am. I guess this terrible storm has made me a little edgy.
Yes, it is a tempestuous evening. I presume all the guests have been shown to their rooms.
Yes, Miss Withers. Well, all but Mr. Starkweather's grandson, Mr. Simon III. It's a long drive from his college, and the storm, you know.
I do hope we can start without him. It's already past Mr. Starkweather's bedtime, and he must have his rest.
sure you, Miss Withers? The room is spotlessly clean.
I certainly hope so. Mr. Starkweather's asthmatic condition makes the merest smell of dust potentially lethal.
I served as Mr. Starkweather's housekeeper for years before you came here. I don't need you to tell me how to do my job. You brought the coffee?
It's right here on the table, Mrs. Trent.
Then go back to the kitchen and help Minerva with the rest of the refreshments.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Starkweather made clear that he wishes to have everyone present in the drawing room at 8 o'clock sharp. I'll ask Bensonhurst to fetch the guests from their rooms.
Mr. Starkweather will be ready. I'm coming, Mr. Starkweather.
I done got all the cars parked in the garage, like you told me.
It's ours, I told you. Oh, why waste my breath? You're dripping water all over the foyer, Rufus. Why did you enter through the front door? I've told you a million times that servants never enter through the front door.
Well, I reckon I forgot, Mr. Bensonhurst. Besides, it's raining out there.
I am aware of that, thank you. It now looks as if it's been raining in here as well, thanks to you.
You're welcome.
Go back the way you came and maneuver yourself around to the back door. Do you think you can manage that?
Well, I don't know, but I suppose I'm gonna find out.
When the final guest, that's young Master Simon, arrives, I'll summon you so you can park his car for him.
Oh, good. In the meantime, I'll be sitting by the stove, seeing if I can grow some gills.
Don't be impertinent!
How can I be if I don't know what it means?
Just do as you're told. Go to the kitchen and wait there till I call for you. Not that way! Have you forgotten already that I told you to go around to the back door?
No, but I was hoping you had.
That man is an idiot!
I heard that!
Where do you want me to put this one, Minerva?
On the coffee table? Be careful with it.
Yes, ma'am. I think everything is ready.
You think wrong. Go place the cups on the saucers, so all we have to do is pour the coffee.
Yes, ma'am.
The others are coming down. Miss Van Zandt has informed me that Mr. Starkweather wishes the entire staff to be present.
He wants the servants here?
Precisely. Even Rufus. Had I been informed of that fact sooner, I would have ordered him to take a bath. He has been outside in the rain parking cars, so perhaps that will.
If you ask me, Noah's flood wouldn't help.
Be that as it may, I shall summon him and Mrs. Trent.
Why would Mr. Starkweather want the servants present?
I'll pull out my crystal ball and let you know. Do you remember what I told you when you came to work here?
Yes, ma'am. Do as you're told and don't ask questions.
Exactly. Just stick to that.
I will, Minerva.
Oh dear, I never know what to wear on special occasions. I suppose Uncle Simon's inviting us here. It's a special occasion, isn't it, Jordan?
Well, I suppose so, when you consider most of the time he treats us like lepers.
You think Simon treats us like jungle cats?
No, not leopards, Mother. Never mind, and don't worry, Mother, you look fine.
Thank you, son.
I'll tell you one thing, though. If we ever should inherit this mausoleum, I'll make sure to call up the Addams family and let them know it's on the market.
Counting chickens, are we?
Minerva, I didn't see you and your attractive young helper there.
Nancy is a nice girl, and I mean for her to stay that way.
I'm sure I don't know what you mean.
I doubt that.
I don't understand.
Yeah, I believe that. Take a seat. Can we bring you some coffee?
Coffee? That sounds nice. It's a little damp in here.
Yeah, that's because it's a lot damp out there. How do you take your coffee?
Mother prefers hers black. I like mine sweet, so I'll flavor it myself.
Whatever.
Oh, what lovely hors d'oeuvres!
I'm so glad you like them.
You're looking very pretty tonight, Nancy.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, that makes me feel as old as, well, Great Uncle Simon. Call me Jordan.
She'll call you Mr. Starkweather, the way a proper maid should. If anyone calls you another name, it'll be me. And you don't want to know which one I'm thinking.
Haha, Minerva, you never change, do you?
Neither do you. More's the pity. Now take a seat next to your mother.
Yes, Drill Sergeant.
Goodness, Kathy. I don't see how y'all can stand living out here in the boonies, away from fine restaurants and movies and shopping centers. Why, I'd get so depressed, I'd just sit down and weep.
It's not that bad, Paula. I stay here during the week and go back to my apartment in town most weekends.
I am so relieved to hear that.
I worked for a large corporation before Mr. Starkweather hired me to be his personal secretary, and believe me, this position is much nicer.
Now look what we have here. 2 rays of sunshine to dispel the gloom. You're looking beautiful, ladies.
I swear, Cousin Jordan, you are a rogue and a charmer.
Well, I do my best. Won't you join us?
Have a seat over there, ladies. You'll be safer. Can we bring you some coffee?
Yes, Minerva, I take mine black.
Load mine down with lots of cream and sugar. I must admit, I have an enormous sweet tooth.
So that's where the corn syrup accent comes from.
And how are you this evening, Cousin Fiona?
What? Oh, I'm very well. Thank you, Paula.
That's just peachy. I swear, I don't know why we don't see more of one another. It seems like the only time we get together is for somebody's funeral.
Well, all funerals are for some body.
Shame on you! Don't be morbid, Cousin Jordan. I, for one, am glad this weekend's an exception to the rule. For once, no one's dead.
Well, so far anyways.
That's okay, honey. You didn't sin.
What did you mean by that remark, Jordan?
No, nothing. Just when you had called to tell us that Great Uncle Simon wanted Mother and me to come to Starkweather Mansion. At first, we had assumed he had passed on.
You wish.
I started to pack my new black dress.
Well, it's a natural assumption, of course. He is getting up in his years and is in bad health. I was relieved, to say the least, to find out that the old boy was still with us, of course.
Kathy, darling, I bet you know why Great Uncle Simon desired our presence this frightful evening. Come on, tell.
Well, Miss Van Zant will go into the particulars, but I believe Mr. Starkweather wishes to discuss his will.
Really?
I'd appreciate it if you wouldn't drool on the hors d'oeuvres.
Why, Minerva, you misjudged me. I was just surprised. That's all.
Uh-huh. Where's Cousin Simon? Shouldn't he be here too?
When I contacted him last week, he said he could make it. Apparently, he's going to be late. If he's tried calling, he couldn't get through. The phone lines are down.
Well, if we are going to talk about the whale, he should be here. After all, he is Great Uncle Simon's only grandchild.
Yeah, he'll probably get everything, too.
Excuse me a moment. I hate to interrupt. You guys are doing okay, I guess. But I suggested to Mr. St. John that these family relations might be a bit confusing. He agreed, and he was going to write a scene that explained everything. He was working on it when he snapped, like a rubber band. So, I will just have to explain it to you. I think that there might be a family tree in your program, so here's how it goes. Simon Starkweather, the old billionaire, whom you'll meet in a little bit, married late in life and had one son, Simon II. Simon II in turn married and had another son, Simon III, the college student who is late for the gathering. Now the original Mrs. Starkweather, Simon II, and his wife are now dead. Now old Simon's eldest brother, Paul, married late in life and had one daughter, Bella. Bella married Lucien Thompson, an Atlanta businessman, and they had one daughter, Paula here. Now, Paul, his wife, Bella, and Lucien are now dead. Now, Old Simon's youngest brother, John, married and had one son, Ezra. Ezra is married to Fiona here. And Fiona had one son, Jordan. But you already knew that. Now, John, his wife, and Ezra are now dead. Now, I realize that that's a lot of dead people, but if we had included them in the show, it would have looked like a marching band had wandered onto the stage. Believe me, it was hard enough to move everyone about as it was. That's it. You can keep going.
Hey, Gene?
Yeah.
We have no idea where we are.
I'm not even sure who I am anymore.
Right. Okay. Let's start at Josh and Naomi's entrance scene. Cam,
Yeah, huh?
give them their entrance cue.
What is it?
He'll probably get everything.
Who will? Rachel?
Your cousin, Simon.
I don't have a cousin, Simon. Oh, I get it. Like the play. Oh, don't you worry about things. You go sit down. All right. Yeah, it'll probably get everything too.
I'm very pleased with your investigation. I'll be glad to recommend you to my other clients.
Just doing my job, Miss Van Zandt.
Good evening, everyone.
I know we haven't met yet, but I've got a pretty good idea who you all are. Mrs. Starkweather and her son, Jordan, right?
That's right, Mr.
Davis, call me Mike.
Well, from what Miss Van Zandt just said, you're some sort of investigator?
You got it, pal. The private kind.
I see.
Who is this nice young man, dear?
He's a detective, Mother.
A detective? How exciting. Do you know Jessica Fletcher?
No, ma'am. She's way out of my league. I do know who you two ladies must be, though.
If you're a private investigator, I'd be surprised if you didn't.
That accent settles it. You are Paula Thompson.
You're 100% correct. I can't deny I'm from the deep south.
Yeah, if she came from any deeper south, she'd live in Central America.
That leaves you to be Kathy Collins. It's nice to finally meet you in person.
You too, Mike. Mike and I have corresponded for some time now by mail and fax on Mr. Starkweather's behalf.
Is this seat taken? No? I'll pocket you then.
And I expect you to remain unobtrusive.
I sure will. As soon as I find a dictionary and look it up.
Just sit over there by the fire and keep quiet.
By the fire? Oh, good. My backside's still kind of soggy. Oh, yeah.
Keep an eye on that idiot.
She'll do my best.
If all is in readiness, Miss Van Zandt, I shall inform Mr. Starkweather.
Yes, thank you, Bensonhurst.
There's coffee if anybody else wants some.
I could use some Minerva.
How do you take it?
In a cup?
Black, please.
Miss Van Zandt, I understand that Great Uncle Simon has asked us here to talk about his will.
That is correct. Frankly, I did not think it was a good idea. Mr. Starkweather's health is precarious at best, and he doesn't need the excitement. I advised him to communicate with you by mail, but he insisted on summoning you to Starkweather Mansion. I only hope he doesn't live to regret that decision.
Miss Withers is bringing Mr. Starkweather in to join us.
Can I move now?
are, Mr. Starkweather.
Sit. Go.
I'll be right here if you need me.
To think, I was once surrounded by presidents and kings. Can my world have come to this? A handful of relatives and a meager staff of hired help. Simon. Where's my grandson?
We presume he's on his way, Mr. Starkweather.
I can't wait for him. Not enough time anymore.
Good evening, Great Uncle Simon. You're looking well.
Are you blind, boy, or just a habitual liar?
I was only making pleasantries, Uncle.
Save your breath. You've always been a smooth talker, Jordan, but you're not cutting any ice with me. You're nothing but a greedy opportunist, boy. I should know. I was one myself at your age.
And I guess it runs in the family, eh?
You have a point. Well, Fiona, you look the same.
I do? What? Thank you, Uncle Simon.
It wasn't necessarily meant as a compliment.
Great Uncle Simon, you're awful.
At my age and with my money, I can afford to say exactly what I think. And I do. And how's my little Georgia Peach?
Little old me? I'm just peachy, Uncle.
Ugh, I think I'm worse. Mr. Starkweather, would you care for some coffee?
He mustn't have any. The caffeine could keep him awake, and it would affect his blood pressure. Sometimes his medications cause it to run a little high.
Apparently, I won't be having any Minerva. You heard my keeper.
Yes, sir.
Everyone aspires to live to a ripe old age. And for what? To be kept alive by medicines and machines? To be kept alive from enjoying the little things in life? Like a cup of coffee!
You mustn't excite yourself, Mr. Starkweather.
You see, I'm not even allowed to feel human emotions anymore.
That's a bummer.
You put it very succinctly, Rufus. Old age is a bummer. I could have searched my vocabulary extensively and never have thought to come up with such an apt description. Bummer.
Well, I'm glad you like it.
Well, according to my doctors, I will no longer have to be a victim in this weak old body for much longer. But there is just one thing that I hate to leave behind the most, and that's my money.
Well, you know what they say, Uncle. You can't take it with you.
Yes, that is what they say. So several months ago, I had Lois here draw up my will. I suppose how you would all like to know how I provided for you, my heirs.
I, for one, admit I'm just a teensy bit curious.
Teensy bit.
I was afraid something like this might happen. Here, Mr. Starkweather. Breathe deeply. See what you've done.
Me?
Should somebody call an ambulance?
We can't, the phones are dead.
It's all right. He just lost his breath. He needs to breathe pure oxygen for a few minutes.
Tell them?
Very well. This is the will Mr. Starkweather was referring to. As you know, he's been a phenomenally successful businessman for many years.
I'd say he's been on the cover of Forbes magazine at least a dozen times.
I never read it.
He has the distinction of becoming one of the world's first billionaires.
20 years ago, I begged your Ezra to ask his Uncle Simon to advise him on his business investments, but he was too proud.
Yeah, Dad had his pride. Lots of pride, but very little money.
If I may continue, Mr. Starkweather's fortune is now worth in the neighborhood of $50 billion.
If I'd known that, I'd have asked for a raise.
I won't go into the details of the will, but it essentially bequeaths $1 million each to his household staff. They are Mr. Bensonhurst, his butler, Mrs. Trent, his housekeeper, Minerva Walker, his cook, Miss Withers, his nurse, Nancy Pollard, his maid, and Rufus Jones, his handyman.
Whoa! Forget the raise!
Oh, Mr. Starkweather, I had no idea.
The will goes on to state that the rest of the money is to be divided equally among his surviving relatives. They are his grandson, Simon III, his niece, Fiona Starkweather, and her son, Jordan, who share 1/3, and his great-niece, Paula Thompson.
Isn't that nice?
I always knew you'd do right by us, Uncle.
I know you got mad when Mama married a Southern boy, Great Uncle Simon, but you two must have agreed on one thing. Blood is thicker than water.
Oh, I bet Miss Withers could tell you, even it is.
Now that I've informed you of the will's contents, I have another announcement to make. As of tomorrow, this will becomes invalid.
What does invalid mean?
It means no good.
Oh, I got a brother that's invalid.
Miss Van Zant means we're not getting the money, you fool.
Oh, well, I guess I won't be getting that big screen TV I was thinking about after all.
Sit. You two lost.
Why did you decide to disinherit us, Uncle?
Found a better use of my money. That's why. Oh, I didn't disinherit you all fully. All of you in the old will get $50,000 each.
50,000 out of 50 billion?
Lois here advised me that it would be a good idea to leave you all a little something. That way you'd be less likely to contest to my new will.
New will?
Yes, Paula, yes. That is exactly why I had Kathy here stay over this weekend at Starkweather Mansion to type it up nice and legal for my signature. Mr. Davis here, as a disinterested party, will witness the signing, and Lois will file it at the courthouse come Monday.
Wait, Mr. Davis said he's a detective. What did you even hire him to do?
Mr. Starkweather hired me to conduct an investigation on the quiet. For the last several months, I've flown to a dozen or more foreign countries, checking out some of the world's most brilliant scientists. Some well-known, others who prefer to keep their experiments hush-hush. I succeeded in finding one in Belgium. Let's call him Dr. X, who agreed to help Mr. Starkweather to do what he desires, which is to clone himself.
What? That's insane!
I don't understand!
Good. I'm glad I'm not the only one.
Those blood and skin samples you had me prepare? The ones you said would be examined by specialists.
They were sent to specialists, Withers. Specialists in DNA.
I thought you were trying to find a cure.
I was. Not a cure for my various ailments and such, but a cure for dying, and I did find it.
Cloning?
Precisely. Through modern science, I shall live forever!
It's not right.
That's neither here nor there. Let the murderous politicians debate that method for decades to come. In the meantime, however, Dr. X, as Mr. Davis named him, will be cloning the new me. Withers, will you sit down? A lot of you seem to be displeased, not I suspect because of the question in general, but because of your change in fortune. Well, too bad. Cloning is a very expensive procedure, especially since the method that I require must be done in absolute secrecy. But I will still have a sizable enough fortune for the new me to inherit. No doubt, I will be the first person in the world to become my own heir. Withers, my blood pressure.
Yes, Mr. Starkweather. If you'll excuse me, I need to take Mr. Starkweather's blood pressure.
Why don't you just take it right here?
Mr. Starkweather's arms are too frail for me to get a proper reading from them. This is an outsize cuff, made to go around a patient's thigh. He can withstand the pressure from the inflated cuff better there. If you'll excuse me, he's had enough excitement for one evening. I shall put him to bed.
I guess our meeting is concluded, unless anyone has any questions.
I do. What the heck was that all about?
Well, it's quite simple, Rufus. Great Uncle Simon was going to leave us all a fortune, but no, he's changed his mind. Instead, he's decided to clone himself.
Uh-huh. What does clone mean?
It means take some cells from a person's body and create a duplicate of the original.
They can do that? That's great. Maybe when the old Mr. Starkweather dies, I can get a job working for the new Mr. Starkweather.
The new Mr. Starkweather? You have to be born again, and then he has to grow up. It goes against the very laws of nature. How?
It has all been arranged. Once Dr. X has created the new life, the cells will be implanted into a host mother, who will carry the child to term.
Host mother? Who?
Me.
Oh,
You.
that's nasty.
Why not? I'm young, healthy, smart, pretty, successful, responsible.
And humble.
I'll make a good mother for little Simon.
How can you ever even consider being a part of this travesty?
I'll be well compensated. Besides, have you ever known anyone else to give birth to a baby billionaire? Uncle Simon is giving his money to a baby?
In a manner of speaking, yes. The new will places Mr. Starkweather's fortune into a trust fund, which I'll administer. I'll release the money to pay Dr. X and his team to perform the cloning procedure. After that, ample funds will be available to provide for Kathy's needs and the child's upbringing and education. Once he is properly trained to deal in high finance, the fortune will be turned over to him.
The kid will look, think, and act like Simon Starkweather. He could conceivably parlay those billions into trillions by the time he's an old man.
But why? For what purpose? Just to leave it to another clone, then another, and then another? I mean, where will it finally end? When there's a Simon Starkweather with enough money and power to rule the world?
We didn't discuss it, but you might well be right.
I can't believe you would condone such madness.
I can see why she would. Miss Van Zant and the Collins girl will live like billionaires off Mr. Starkweather's money. Money that should have gone to us and to his family. You know, I bet you'll get rich too, since you're a part of this scheme.
Not me. My part's over. I'll take my very generous check and go home. Frankly, I don't care if the boss's science fiction experiment works or not.
You should be ashamed. You should all be ashamed.
I believe you've made your feelings quite clear, ladies. If you and the other servants will join me, I wish to speak to all of you in the kitchen. We'll clear after we've finished. I trust you'll ring if you require anything else.
Well, it might be kind of nice hearing the pitter-patter of little feet around the house.
Shut up, Rufus!
Cassie and I will retire to my room. You might as well begin typing up the new will tonight. I'll direct you to put everything in the proper legal terms.
Sure, Lois. The sooner it's finished and signed, the better.
Hey, wait a minute. How come nobody asked me if I wanted to carry the baby? I could do it as well as she can.
You're Mr. Starkweather's bloodkin, Paula. It wouldn't be proper.
I guess it would be kind of tacky.
Proper? You're about to conduct an experiment that makes, well, Frankenstein look amateur. Oh, but you're worried about being proper?
Cool it, kid, before you burst a blood vessel. Mr. Starkweather has made up his mind, and I get the feeling that whatever the old man wants, he gets.
Succinctly put, Mr. Davis. Kathy?
I'll head back up to my room. Once I witness the signing of the new will, I'll have no reason to stick around. Night.
We were robbed.
We were?
Yes, Mother. Great Uncle Simon dangled a fortune in front of our noses and snatched it away.
That was mean.
Mean? The man is a monster. Did you see the evil glint in his eyes? He pulled the rug from under our feet.
At least he is, leaving us 50,000.
Oh, that's no more than tossing a dime to the beggar. And only did it to keep us from breaking his new will. You heard him.
Yeah.
I wish he were dead. I wish the old goat would drop dead tonight.
It would serve him right.
If Uncle Simon did die tonight, then we'd get all our money, wouldn't we, my dears? Would anyone care for a game of bridge?
A penny for your thoughts? That's all I can afford to pay. Well, now.
Mr. Starkweather.
It's Jordan, remember? At least when Minerva the Dragon Lady isn't around.
I thought everyone had gone to bed.
Well, I did get the urge to turn in, but I wanted a midnight snack.
I'll fix you something.
Never mind that. What are you doing up?
Mrs. Trent sent me in here to make sure the fire screen is properly closed, so no sparks pop out onto the rug.
And burn Starkweather Mansion to the ground? Doesn't sound like such a bad idea.
You shouldn't talk like that. You know Mr. Starkweather is an invalid.
You read my mind.
Jordan!
I got you to call me by my first name, too.
You mustn't even suggest such a thing. It's wicked.
And why should that surprise you? Everyone knows I'm the black sheep of my family. If it were to happen tonight, you'd have millions and I'd have billions. Think of all the good times we could have. Together.
Don't!
It's a tempting thought. Admit it.
It's not. It's a horrible idea.
What? The part about getting the money or you and me together?
Part about the money.
And what about us?
Nancy! I thought you were going to help me with the dishes.
I'm just checking the French doors, Minerva, to make sure they're locked.
I see. What are you doing here?
Hi. I got the urge for a midnight snack, and I stopped and saw Nancy, so I thought I'd have a little chat.
Right. That appetite of yours is going to get you in trouble one of these days.
Minerva, what are you doing with that knife?
Mincing onions?
At midnight.
Yes, I can't stand to have anyone see me cry. I thought I heard someone in here and I came in to check. If you're hungry, come with me. I'll find you something.
Yes, Minerva. Anything you say, Minerva.
Finish checking and then come give me a hand.
Yes, ma'am.
Come on.
Rufus! I thought I heard someone come in.
It was just me.
So I see. Good grief, man. What are you doing with that axe?
Oh, it's like this. See, I remembered I was chopping wood for the fire this afternoon. Before it started raining, of course. But I didn't put the axe back in the shed. I forgot. I've been dismembering things a lot lately. When it come to me where I left it, I figured I better bring it inside and dry it off, so it don't rust.
That's fine, but why bring it into the living room? Besides, how many times do I have to tell you to use the back door?
As many as you want. I ain't counting.
Ugh, I swear, Rufus, you'll be the death of me. Go to the kitchen and have Mrs. Trent give you a towel.
What for? I ain't wet.
I know that. To dry the axe.
All right.
The back. If that man had a brain, he'd be dangerous.
I heard that.
A penny for your thoughts?
Jordan, I just came down for a breath of fresh air. What are you doing up this late?
Munchies. Want a cookie?
No thanks.
Have you and Miss Van Zandt finished that new will yet?
Yeah, it's all ready, except for Mr. Starkweather's signature. I see you've calmed down. I wouldn't blame you if you hated me.
No, why would I hate you? If I were in your shoes, well, I'd make the same deal.
I'm sure you would, Jordan.
But aren't you forgetting something?
What?
The little tyke will need a dad too. Someone to guide and mold him into the perfect replica of Great Uncle Simon. A heartless money-making machine.
You think so?
I know so. And you a better father figure than I. You're a very attractive woman, Kathy. We can mix business with pleasure.
Take your crummy hands off of me!
What?
You're getting cookie crumbs on my dress! And by the way, forget it. If I decide little Simon needs a father after he's born, I'll pick a suitable husband then. I don't know who he'll be, but he won't be some sleazy, money-hungry slimeball like you, Jordan!
You know, I could kill you, you witch.
I wouldn't try it if I were you, not with a detective in the house.
Aren't you finished in here yet?
I need to make everything right.
Well, hurry up, girl. Minerva wants you in the kitchen.
Yes, ma'am.
Don't dawdle. Someone left the French doors open. Close them. Miss Thompson!
Oh, Mrs. Trent! Oh, you gave me quite a fright.
What on earth are you doing roaming the house in the middle of the night with a gun in your hands?
Oh, don't worry. I know how to handle a gun. I couldn't sleep, so I thought I'd go clean it. I was going to look in the kitchen for some oil.
I doubt if you'll find what you need in there, unless you want to rub it down with some Crisco. Do you often carry that thing around with you?
I take it everywhere I go. Daddy taught me how to be a crack shot when I was 10. A girl can't be too careful.
I don't think you have anything to worry about at Starkweather Mansion. It's miles from the nearest town, and no one ever really comes out this way.
You've never had a burglary or a prowler?
No.
You know, since Great Uncle Simon is so sick and all, it's a wonder nobody's tried to steal something. With his bedroom being on the ground floor, anybody could just break in those French doors and walk into his room and do who knows what.
Like shoot him?
Well, it could happen. As terrible as that thought is. In his condition, how could he defend himself?
Well, he could always sick Nurse Withers on them, I suppose. That should frighten away any intruders.
Oh, you're just awful. But you know what? I would not want to tangle with the woman. Where does she sleep?
In the room beyond Mr. Starkweather's, so she can hear him in the night, if he rings his bell for her.
Let's see. If I remember correctly, from when Mama brought me here when I was a little girl, this room used to be a library. And the one beyond it was parlor. Am I right?
That's correct. When Mr. Starkweather became too ill to travel up and down the stairs by himself, the library was converted into a bedroom for him, and Miss Withers took the parlor.
So, they're the only ones who sleep downstairs?
Yes. The servants sleep in the attic, under the eaves. We have our own staircase to and from the kitchen. Why do you ask?
Oh, just curious.
Excuse me, folks. But I thought that little section of dialogue was a little awkward and suggested to Mr. St. John that he cut it. But he felt like you needed to get an idea of the layout of the house. He said, "What do you want me to do? Put a blueprint of Starkweather Mansion in the program?" Which I thought was kind of rude. So he made me keep it in there. But I just wanted to let you know that it's a bad piece of writing, and I tried to correct it. That's all.
Hey! I want to let you know that if you pull a stunt like that again, you're going to have to bring that script of yours up on the stage and play Mrs. Trent yourself.
Sorry.
That was great. I wish I had your nerve. Where are we?
So you're curious about the layout of the house?
Yeah, I was just curious.
Well, you know what they say. Curiosity killed the cat.
Yes, well, if you'll excuse me.
Wouldn't it be ironic if someone did break in tonight? Of all nights.
Mrs. Starkweather?
Bensonhurst! You nearly frightened me to death!
My apologies. Might I ask what kind of pills you've just strewn about the room?
Digitalis! For my heart. I have a heart condition. Maybe I should take two.
Digitalis. Doesn't that speed up one's heart rate?
Yes! My little heart is just pumping away!
Perhaps the single dosage will be sufficient. I assume an overdose could be fatal?
Extremely fatal. Or am I being redundant? I suppose fatal is fatal, just like dead is dead, don't you agree?
Completely. One cannot be deader than dead. Dead longer, perhaps. But that is the only comparison for the word that comes to mind. Might I inquire why you brought the medication into the living room?
Why? Oh, that's a very good question. Why did I bring them down here? Oh, I remember. I was going to show them to Nurse Withers to see if she might have any free manufacturer samples with her medical connections, you know.
But it looked as if your bottle was full already.
It was, but it never hurts to plan ahead. I better pick them up.
Allow me to assist you.
Bensonhurst, can I ask you something?
Be my guest.
Why are you carrying a wrench?
Oh, a wrench. Yes, you see, I happen to remember Miss Withers mentioning that she thought that the gas valve on the heater in Mr. Starkweather's bedroom was a little loose. So I thought I'd go in there, give us a turn or two.
How mechanical of you. We wouldn't want any of that gas to escape into his room, would we?
Naturally not. But first things first, shall we?
I feel like a pigeon pecking popcorn.
You missed one there.
Where?
Beside your left kneecap. Left kneecap.
Got it. They just rolled everywhere.
Round objects do tend to do that, madam.
Nurse Withers!
Oh, Mrs. Starkweather. What are you doing on the floor with Bensonhurst?
Picking up spilled pills. I dropped my digitalis. Watch where you put your feet, my dear. Both of them.
I assume Mr. Starkweather has required an injection. Is there a problem?
Nothing I can't handle. His lungs seem to be somewhat congested, so I took him from his bed and sat him back in his wheelchair. He can breathe better in an upright position. I then gave him an injection of steroids to help open his bronchial passages.
My. Where would Uncle Simon be without you?
Dead. Without my help, he would have stopped breathing long ago.
Speaking of which, wasn't there something you wanted to ask Miss Withers, madam?
Was there?
The digitalis.
Oh, yes! Nurse Withers, I was wondering if you happen to have any free samples of digitalis you don't need. I have a heart condition, and I like to keep a supply handy.
I can see why you would. Yours tend to run out, don't they? I'm sorry, Mrs. Starkweather, but I'm fresh out of spare drugs. Your uncle requires every pill he's got to keep him going.
Oh my. Then we'd better gather up all of mine. Will you help us, my dear?
I suppose.
Is this a private game or can anybody play?
Mr. Davis! We're picking up spilled pills!
Is that it? I thought you were holding a tiny little marble tournament. I'll pass.
Here you are, Mrs. Starkweather. I really must return to my duties.
And to your mine as well.
Thank you, from the bottom of my heart.
If you'll excuse me.
Miss Withers, how's the boss?
Bossy. He sent me for a pitcher of water a little bit ago. If I'm not back in a couple minutes, he'll start ringing that bell for me. See what I mean? I'll be right there, Mr. Starkweather.
I gather he rings for you a lot?
Incessantly. When he stops ringing the bell, I know he's kicked the bucket. Excuse me.
Spoken like a true member of the medical profession. What's with the wrench, Bensonhurst? Got some kind of a problem I can give you a hand with?
Thank you, sir, but no. It will have to wait. I, too, shall excuse myself.
Well,
You're up kind of late, Mrs. Starkweather.
couldn't sleep. What about you, Mr. Davis?
Oh, I'm a real night owl. Besides, I was hoping young Simon Starkweather would show up. I haven't met him yet.
Simon's a sweet boy. I do hope he's all right in all the storm.
He probably just pulled off the road to let it pass. Starting to cloud over again. Looks like we may be in for another deluge.
Oh dear, I hope not. I believe I'll go to my room and lie down.
Good night, Mrs. Starkweather.
Good night.
I'm coming, Mr. Starkweather. Oh, you're still here.
Yeah, just keeping an eye on things.
I see. Well, my patient.
You're up too, Mr. Davis.
Yeah, and I'm not the only one. There seems to be more traffic passing through Starkweather Mansion at midnight than goes through the interstate at rush hour.
I know what you mean. I've been hearing footsteps go past my bedroom door all evening. I'm not surprised, though. We could have guessed Mr. Starkweather's announcement would give his heirs a sleepless night or two.
Between you and me, Miss Van Zant, this cloning business, how do you feel about it?
I'm a lawyer, Mr. Davis. I'm paid to think, not feel. Can Mr. Starkweather be cloned? Definitely. There's no doubt the technology exists. Should he be cloned? Let's just say I wouldn't want to be the first to challenge nature by creating another Lois Van Zandt.
Me too. I'm a simple guy. The sooner we can get the signing over with and I can get back to the real world, the better.
The new will is finished. Mr. Starkweather can sign it first thing in the morning.
The old boy's still awake. That nurse was in here just a minute ago. He was ringing his bell for her.
In that case, there's no reason he can't sign it now.
That's what I'm thinking. The people in this house are as tense as a bunch of long-tailed cats in a room full of rocking chairs. I know I'll feel better once the boss's plan is a done deal.
I'll go up to my room and get the will. Why don't you let Mr. Starkweather know? What in the world?
The circuit breaker must have tripped.
But the storm passed hours ago.
I know. I don't like this. I don't like this at all. I'll find Bensonhurst and have him show me where the circuit breaker is.
Good. I'll let Mr. Starkweather know we're taking care of it.
Tools of the trade.
It's all right, Mr. Starkweather. Mr. Starkweather?
Hello? Is anyone here? Bensonhurst? Trent? Anybody?
Kathy? I think there's something wrong with Mr. Starkweather. I don't know where that nurse is.
Oh no, he hasn't signed the new will yet, has he?
No. Perhaps he just fainted. We need light. Mr. Davis is trying to find the circuit breaker and... Mr. Starkweather!
And someone struck me.
It's Mr. Starkweather, help him!
Who is screaming?
What have you done this time?
It wasn't me, probably, hopefully.
Very late.
He's dead. Someone put the blood pressure cuff and pumped it to the maximum pressure. 300 millimeters of mercury. Mr. Starkweather has been strangled to death.
Poor Mr. Starkweather? Who would do such a thing?
Give me a break. I'd say that you and nearly everyone else in this room are right up there on the top 10 list.
Okay,
I'll check the body.
Those drops on his robe, is it blood?
I'm not sure.
What else could it be?
I'll handle it. I'm the detective, remember? What can you tell us, Miss Withers?
When I brought Mr. Starkweather his pitcher of water and made sure he was breathing all right, I went back to my room and laid down across my bed. A few minutes later, the lights went out.
You know, I noticed that too.
Hush! Mr. Starkweather started ringing his bell. I was lighting a candle when someone hit me in the head with a heavy object. I must have blacked out. When I came to...
Yeah, we could take it from there.
Well, you seem to be in charge, Mr. Davis. What do we do now?
We keep trying the phones until morning. If we can't get through to the police, someone will have to drive me into town to report that there's been a murder at Starkweather Mansion.
Murder?
Maybe the old man did himself in. Or maybe not. Young Mr. Simon, you made it! And boy, do we have a surprise for you.
Now, wasn't that just the most diabolical... Wasn't that just the most diabolical murder ever? don't you just love the way Mr. St. John's mind works? No wonder he went bonkers. Now, first thing during intermission, you guys will need to get out your programs and scan the QR code. It'll pull up a ballot, and where you guys will need to mark which character you think murdered Simon Starkweather. The cast will circulate around just in case you guys have any questions. And in case you don't need to go get a drink of water or anything, well, we'll see you back here in 15 minutes. Wait, turn the lights back up. Thank you. Sorry for the interruption, but I just wanted to make sure that the cast knew what to do when they had learned who will be the murderer at this performance based on your guys' counted ballots. There were a few things that Mr. St. John intended to add once he decided who will be the killer. Lines or actions that are clues to a person's identity. I just wanted to let you know so that you guys can continue to play Armchair Detective and try and guess the culprit's identity. Well, I think that's it for now. Relax and enjoy the conclusions of Murders in the Air. Lights!
Dead. I can't believe grandfather is dead.
Well, he is, Cousin Simon. He's the deadest person I ever saw.
Funny you should say that. Bensonhurst and I were discussing the degrees of death earlier,
Oh,
and...
Mother, please.
And he was murdered.
There's no doubt about it. You saw the body.
Poor grandfather. If I had only made it here sooner.
How do we know you didn't get here sooner?
What?
For all we know, you could have arrived hours ago, parked your car out of sight, slipped in, killed the lights moments before you killed Simon Starkweather.
That's insane, though. Why would I do it?
I'd say a third of a $50 billion fortune would be a good enough reason to knock somebody off. If Mr. Starkweather had signed that
I
new
didn't
will.
know about this new will. I didn't know about this whole crazy cloning scheme grandfather had planned until you told me.
It would have been easy enough to hide outside those French doors and eavesdrop on the conversation.
Why would I hide? I was expected here. I told you what happened.
Tell me again.
Fine. I had to edge through at a snail's pace. Rain pouring down, branches hitting my windows side to side. It felt like I was driving through a hurricane out there. So I was driving along, and then I had to stop at the bridge because the river was going so much higher than it. But then I remembered, about a mile away from the bridge, there was this tree that had fallen down a couple of years ago. I remember I was playing on it when I was a kid. So I made my way across it, taking note of how high the river was rising, and apparently I had just gotten here after grandfather's murder.
That's a good story, but it sounds rehearsed.
Not much enough. It's the truth, though. I swear it.
Maybe, but I'm still not crossing you off my suspect list.
And who exactly is on that suspect list, Mr. Davis?
Everyone in this house except for Miss Collins and Miss Van Zant. They had a heck of a lot to gain had your grandfather lived only a few more minutes. As it turns out, they're left out in the cold.
Especially me. Lois has other clients now. I'm among the unemployed.
I'm sure, Kathy, once we get the estate settled off, we can arrange for you to get a generous severance check.
Yeah, take it out of your portion if you'd like. Mother and I will pass.
So will I. Nothing personal, of course. Of course.
Mr. Davis, what do we do now?
Simon's story reminded me we could play some bridge.
The way I see it, we sit tight until daybreak. Then I'll have you show me the way to your car. You'll drive me into town, and I'll report what I know to the police. We'll notify them that the bridge is out. I'm guessing they'll send in a helicopter. They'll need to get the body to the coroner's office, take your statements, and examine the crime scene. Once a homicide detective is assigned to the case, I'm out of here.
What? But you're a detective. You were here when the murder happened. You have a better chance of solving this than anybody else.
Sorry, kid, but now that Mr. Starkweather's dead, I'm off the payroll. Once I give the big boys my statement, I'm finished.
I'll pay you to stay. I won't be able to get my portion until this whole thing is dealt and over with, but if you're willing to wait...
You're on, kid. I figure you're good for the dough. Incidentally, that offer dropped you down to the bottom of the suspect list. Well, I better start earning my salary.
How can we help, Mr. Davis?
First, I want to question everyone as to their whereabouts about the time Mr. Starkweather was murdered.
Establish everyone's alibis.
Yeah. Then I need to know anything any of you may have seen or heard in the last several hours that could lead us to discover the killer's identity.
Clues.
You got it. Motives, alibis, and clues. That's what a detective has to work with. The motives in this case are obvious. The other parts aren't yet. But hopefully they will be by the time I'm finished.
That seems like a good plan, Mr. Davis. Whom would you like to start with?
Since you're paying the freight, call me Mike. How about you, Miss Thompson? Would you mind being first?
I'm awfully tired, but if I have to...
You don't have to, Paula. None of us do.
What do you mean, dear?
Well, I mean, Mr. Davis isn't a police officer. We don't have to offer him the time of day.
You're right about that, Jordan. But why would you refuse to participate? Maybe being as you had something to hide?
Now look, Simon, don't start accusing me of murder unless you can prove it.
Simon has a point. Do you want me to tell the police that everyone cooperated except for you?
Fine, I'll answer your dumb little questions. But first, I'm taking Mother upstairs and having her lie down. She's getting up in her years and she needs a rest.
Why, thank you very much, Jordan. I'm not a spring chicken anymore, but I'm not a chicken dinner either.
Okay, don't get excited, Mother. Come on now. Are you okay? Do you need your digitalis?
No, but if I did, there's probably 1 or 2 pills still underneath the sofa. I had a little accident with my pill bottle earlier.
Okay, come on now. You can call for us when you're ready.
I assume you want to question everyone in private? You can wait with me in my room if you'd like, Kathy. I want to read over the old will since it will remain the official one.
Sure, Lois. Excuse us.
I'd like to stay. Since I wasn't here when the murders occurred, hearing everyone's statements will give me a clearer picture of what happened here tonight at Starkweather Mansion.
You're the boss now. I'm particularly interested as to what happened between the time Mr. Starkweather announced the changing of his will and the time he was murdered.
How long was that?
Several hours. Well, Miss Thompson, did you observe anything in that time frame that might be able to help us?
I was very disappointed by Great Uncle Simon's announcement, as you might well imagine. I mean, I can understand why you might want to clone Tom Cruise. But Great Uncle Simon? No offense, Cousin Simon, but your grandfather was not a very nice person. Anyway, I spent most of that time in my room, but I did come downstairs once on a little errand. I was outside the kitchen door when I heard Minerva and that cute little maid Nancy talking.
What is the matter with you, girl? Did you leave your mind in the other room? You haven't heard a word I said.
I'm sorry, Minerva. I'm so confused.
About what? Has that no-good scamp Jordan been bothering you?
Jordan? I mean, Mr. Starkweather? What makes you say that?
When I walked in on the two of you in the living room, you were standing mighty close together. Real lovey-dovey like. What was he saying to you?
I think he wanted me to
do something you didn't want to do?
Yes, but it's not what you're thinking.
I'll bet. If that boy tries anything, I will cut him down to size.
Minerva, no! He's not interested in me. I heard him earlier with Miss Collins.
Ah, I get the picture. When you lost your million, he lost interest in you, didn't he? He's following the money right to the Collins girl, isn't he?
He proposed to her, but she laughed at him.
Good for her. Serves him right, the lazy bum.
Don't call him that.
Oh, you are hung up on him, aren't you? Nancy, don't be a fool. Jordan would just use you and toss you aside like he's done a dozen other girls I know of.
Maybe he's ready to settle down now. If Mr. Starkweather hadn't taken away his money, Jordan would be free to...
Free to do what?
Nothing. If we're finished, I'd like to go to my room now.
Go on. Nancy,
Yes, ma'am?
lock your door.
Excuse me, folks. Thank you. Lights? Or not? Okay. Well, that little scene in the foyer, it was a flashback. It had showed a conversation that Paula had overheard before the murder. Other characters' stories, well, portions of them, will be shown in flashback form too. Isn't that clever? I just wanted to make sure you all got that. You can continue.
That woman's really asking for it.
So tell me, Mrs. Trent, have you seen or heard anything suspicious?
Suspicious? Well, I suppose you'd call toting a gun around the house suspicious, even though Mr. Starkweather wasn't shot to death.
A gun? What? Who has a gun?
Besides me?
Paula Thompson, that's who, claims she's a regular Annie Oakley. She even mentioned how easy it would be for someone to come through those French doors and kill Mr. Starkweather.
Did she now?
Ask her yourself.
Anything else?
Well, I did happen to overhear a rather odd conversation between Rufus and Mrs. Starkweather. I had gone upstairs to distribute candles in the case of a power outage, which happened to be very useful, as you know. I was just about to turn the corridor onto the west wing when I saw Mrs. Starkweather at the far edge of the room, near the stairs.
Do I have enough? Oh dear.
Miss Starkweather!
Rufus! You scared me out of a year's growth!
That's all right, ma'am. At our age, we do all our growing sideways.
I certainly hope not! What are you doing with that television set? It doesn't look like a portable.
Well, it is now. I'm taking it from one of the guest rooms that ain't in use.
Whatever for?
Well, I ain't sleepy, you see, so I thought I'd watch some TV. But the set in my room is all messed up. The color, I mean. Every dad blam channel was green. Grey's Anatomy is green. iCarly is green. Bubble Guppies is green. Looks like every channel starring Kermit the Frog.
How disconcerting!
You can say that again, whatever it means. Are them breath mints? I wouldn't mind a few.
These? Oh no, Rufus. You mustn't have any of these. They're for my heart. If you ate any of these pills, they could kill you.
In that case, I'll pass. You better be careful not to leave them lying around, though. If somebody could eat a whole bunch by accident and wind up dead.
That's entirely possible.
What would they put on their death certificate? Cause of death? Bad breath?
It isn't a laughing matter. I'll be careful with them. I need these pills, you see. I need every last one of them.
So, let me get this straight. Rufus had an axe in the house.
Yes, Master Simon. I had instructed him to chop some firewood.
I'm surprised you trust him with an axe.
Personally, I would entrust him with a butter knife. I'll simply relay Mr. Starkweather's instructions.
Did you happen to notice anything else of interest?
Just one thing, sir. Earlier tonight, I was coming from the kitchen when I happened to see Master Jordan standing in the door to Mr. Starkweather's room. The hall door, not that one. His behavior was somewhat furtive, and I got the impression he was about to enter when the door suddenly opened and Miss Withers came out. It was apparent her unexpected arrival startled Master Jordan.
Well, what do you want?
I was going to check in on Great Uncle Simon.
No need. That's what I'm paid to do.
So, how is he?
Still breathing, if that's what you're wondering about.
How much time do you think he has left?
Let's just say he needn't start reading any long novels. Or even a short story.
Do you think he'll make it through the night?
I think he'll keep his heart beating through sheer determination. Long enough to sign that new will. That is what you want to know, isn't it?
Why, Miss Withers, you misjudge me.
Give it a rest, Jordan. You'd love to see him drop dead before daybreak. Just like nearly everyone else in this house.
Including you. $1 million is a fortune, and a lot of people would kill for that much money.
If that's a hint, forget it. As Mr. Starkweather's nurse, I'd be the prime suspect if his death appeared to be by anything but natural causes.
Well, suspecting and proving are two different things.
I'm going to forget you said that. Good night, Jordan. It's true. Jordan Starkweather did hint that I was in a position to end his great uncle's life in a way that would appear natural. I assume Bensonhurst also told you that I refused.
He did, but you could have changed your mind.
And then killed him with the blood pressure cuff? That would have been foolish. Hardly what you call by natural causes.
I agree. The manner by which Mr. Starkweather was murdered makes no sense at all, whoever did it.
It's as if the killer was flaunting the deed in front of our faces.
Why would they do that?
That's a good question. Tell me, Miss Withers, if you had to pick a likely suspect, who would it be?
Off the record? That Thompson girl, his great niece, is a little too goody-goody for my taste. Oh, those southern girls can pour on the charm when they want to, but Scarlett O'Hara was pretty ruthless when you get down to it.
Yeah, we've been told Cousin Paula has a gun.
See what I mean? I dare say she and Jordan were desperate to get their hands on Mr. Starkweather's billions. I overheard them talking earlier this evening. It was right after Miss Van Zant's announcement about the new will. They didn't see me in the corridor.
Well, what are we going to do?
Do? What can we do? It's out of our hands.
Don't be such a wimp, Cousin Jordan. That money rightfully belongs to us. There's got to be a way to get it.
I know, okay? Maybe we can break the new will if we have Great Uncle Simon declared insane.
I thought of that, but it won't work. If cloning was just some wild theory, we probably could, but it isn't. It's been done. His plan to be the first person to clone himself might be bizarre, but it isn't insane. We lose the case.
And probably spend the pittance we're going to inherit on the lawyers, too.
Like that Miss Van Zant.
What? What is it you're thinking?
I'm thinking, if you can't beat him, join him.
Huh?
I just figured out a way to get Miss Van Zant to put me on her team.
Wait, what is it?
Fend for yourself, Jordan. If you'll excuse me, I need to go talk with that lawyer.
If you can't beat him. Oh, now where would Kathy be?
It's true. Jordan did suggest we get married. Ugh. But it wasn't what you'd call a romantic proposal. It was more of a business proposition.
You were going to have access to billions. What did Jordan have to offer you?
Himself, I guess. In my opinion, that fortune hunter wouldn't be worth 2 cents.
Then you did turn him down.
Jordan's attractive in a smarmy kind of way, but any woman to have married him would be a fool, and believe me, Mike, I'm no fool.
I knew that from the time we started working together.
You were very brave in volunteering to carry Grandfather's clone.
Look, Simon, once Mr. Starkweather made up his mind to clone himself, nothing was going to change that. He was going to find a surrogate mother somewhere, so it might as well have been me.
Hey, I understand. I just find the whole idea to just be kind of creepy.
Well, you're a lot nicer about it than the other heirs were.
For example?
Paula, for one, she hadn't given up hope about getting her hands on Mr. Starkweather's money.
How do you know?
I was in Lois's room with her when Paula came to the door. She asked if she could speak to Lois in private in the corridor, but they didn't close the door all the way, so I couldn't help but overhear the conversation.
We're very busy, Miss Thompson.
Preparing that new will.
Yes.
Miss Van Zant, you're a lawyer. Are you sure this coloning business is legal? You could lose your license to practice.
The process will be performed in Belgium. As we told you, our laws don't apply there.
What about ethics? Haven't lawyers been disbarred before for behavior that was unethical, if not illegal?
What's your point?
I want in on that deal. You could pay me from that trust fund to be the baby's nanny or whatever. I don't care what you call the position. If you refuse, I shall be forced to report you to the Bar Association. Isn't that what you call it?
It is. Let me give you a little free legal advice, Miss Thompson. In the first place, if you make any accusations against me before the cloning procedure is completed successfully, I'll sue you for the $50,000 you're due to receive and everything else you own. And I'll get it. In the second place, once the baby is on the way, I plan to close down my office. I shall devote all my time to Kathy and little Simon's care. At that point, it shouldn't bother me in the least if I should be disbarred. You don't have to be a lawyer to administer an estate. Anyone can do it.
Oh.
So you see, young woman, your threats are meaningless. In fact, as an officer of the court, I should report your feeble attempt at extortion to the police. Save it! Take your silly southern self out of my sight, and I might be willing to forget it.
All right, I'll go, you lawyer.
Yes, Mrs. Trent?
I found what's left of the Christmas candles I stowed away. I thought it might be useful to pass them out in the case of a power outage. I suggest you keep one in a lighter nearby.
That's very thoughtful, thank you. Kathy's in my room. I'll take one for her also.
Miss Thompson?
Oh, all right. I'm going to my room. There's something I need to get.
What's the matter with her?
Let's just say she's a poor loser. Miss Thompson played her ace, and I trumped it, in a manner of speaking. I'll give this to Kathy.
If I remember correctly, when Kathy Collins saw Mr. Starkweather's body and screamed, you ran in through the front door. What had you been doing outside, Rufus?
Was I outside? Oh, yeah, I guess I was. You see, I was getting a TV from a guest room because the
We
set in my
heard
room...
why, Rufus.
You did? News sure travels fast around here.
All the actors on your set were green.
Sure was. Looked like the Martians had landed or something. But anyway, when I plugged in the new set, the picture didn't come in too good. So I went outside to fix the antenna.
On the roof?
Well, it wouldn't do too much good in the basement now, would it? So when I went to go grab the big ladder from the shed, I heard a gal holler, "Bloody murder!" Murder anyway, even if it wasn't bloody.
Did you see or hear anything outside?
I saw an owl, and I heard a bunch of bullfrogs.
I meant humans.
Oh. I saw Jordan standing on the patio. I'm not sure what he was doing out there.
Earlier tonight, Rufus, did you hear any of the other heirs talking about the new will?
Who didn't? Minerva and old Bensonhurst didn't talk about much else. They was going at it in the kitchen before Mr. Starkweather croaked.
What did they say?
That ain't fair, that's what. That they worked hard for Mr. Starkweather. They deserve their millions. Me, on the other hand, I didn't care too much. I figured $50,000 would buy me a nice TV with a real big screen. And now, I might even get me two. Anything else?
Minerva and Bensonhurst?
Oh, yeah. It was...
Can't go in there, Minerva.
Who's gonna stop me?
I shall, if necessary.
You and whose army?
Look, I completely agree that we were wronged, but a confrontation is not the answer.
Oh yeah? Then what is?
Have patience. Mr. Starkweather hasn't signed the new will yet. Perhaps he'll have changed his mind by morning.
We should live so long.
No, Minerva. He should live so long.
What were you doing outside, Mr. Starkweather?
Just getting a breath of fresh air. Anything wrong with that?
Not if you remained outside.
What do you mean?
When I did a cursory examination of the crime scene, I noticed that Miss Withers had left the window cracked a couple of inches to let in some fresh air. It would have been easy enough for anyone to slip in and...
Are you accusing me of killing Great Uncle Simon?
Calm down, Mr. Starkweather. I'm not accusing anybody. Yet.
Besides, Cousin Jordan, from what we've heard, conning someone else into doing your bidding is much more your style.
Who'd you hear that from?
I'll ask the questions around here, if you don't mind. So tell me, what were you doing outside?
If you must know, Kathy and I had a disagreement, so I blew up. I went outside to cool off, or did you hear about that already?
I ask, you answer, remember? So tell me, if you didn't kill Mr. Starkweather, who did?
Okay, now look, I'm not saying she did it. But have you talked to that little maid, Nancy?
Why her, Cousin Jordan?
Well, the girl has a crush on me, of course. I tend to flirt with the ladies, but I did nothing to lead her on. I knew she was upset about the new will, not just because of how much she would lose, but that I would lose more. I'd strolled around the house. I was just outside the kitchen doors when I overheard Nancy talking to Miss Withers.
Can I do something for you, Miss Withers?
I just needed a fresh pitcher of water to put by Mr. Starkweather's bedside. I got it.
That poor man. When he had the attack and lost his breath in the living room earlier, I realized what you meant when you said the slightest shock proved to be fatal.
Exactly.
Slightest shock. His bell.
I must go.
Yes. We wouldn't want anything to happen to him now, would we? I was shocked when I heard that Mr. Starkweather had included me in his will. I didn't think he even noticed me.
Then you must have received two surprises. To first find out you'd inherit $1 million, and then immediately have it taken away.
3, actually. Now you're wealthy again.
Oh, Mr. Starkweather, I was grateful your grandfather was leaving me even $50,000. With that, I could go to college like you and get a good education.
Now, you're free to do whatever you want. What do you want to do?
I don't know. I haven't been thinking about myself much.
Who has been on your mind, Nancy?
I...
Jordan Starkweather, perhaps? You're very fond of him, aren't you?
Who told you that?
Your cousin Jordan himself, for one, said you might even be willing to kill for him.
He what? How could he say such a thing?
I'm sorry, Nancy, but that's just the way Cousin Jordan is. He's out for himself, and he'll push around anyone who gets in his way.
I guess I knew that. Minerva tried to warn me. I even heard him propose to Miss Collins. But then she laughed about it later with her friend Miss Van Sant. I was taking fresh towels to the guest rooms when I overheard them talking. If you think Jordan is cold-hearted, Miss Collins is just as bad.
Can you believe it? Those soulful gazes might work on some innocent young thing like that made Nancy. But he learned soon enough that I'm no pushover.
I wish I could have been there to see that. It's time Jordan met his match. I could tell Nancy about some of the maids who worked here before her. His Playboy days will be over soon enough, though.
What do you mean?
Up until now, Mr. Starkweather has given Jordan, as well as Fiona, Paula, and young Simon, a generous allowance. Once he passes on, the $50,000 bequests will be the last they get of the Starkweather fortune. They'll have to learn what it's like to work for a living.
Well, Simon's almost out of school. He'll do fine. But the others, they'll go through their money in no time. Then what kind of jobs are they going to get? Can you imagine Paula sitting at the front desk of a car rental agency?
Or Jordan, driving the cars out of the lot for the customers.
And what will Fiona do? Sell Avon?
Could I get you anything, Cousin Fiona? Drink of water, or...
No, dear. I'm fine. Mr. Davis, I want you to know that my Jordan couldn't have done, oh dear, what was done to Uncle Simon. He was with me in my room all evening.
You know that can't be true, Mrs. Starkweather. Jordan told us himself that he went outside, and I saw you in here with Bensonhurst and Miss Withers.
Oh, that's right. Maybe it was last night that he sat with me.
Maybe it was.
Now I know why Jessica Fletcher never believed any of the suspects on Murder, She Wrote. It's so easy to get confused.
Concentrate on tonight, Mrs. Starkweather. Have you seen anything suspicious?
Suspicious? Well, I saw Uncle Simon's body with that horrible thing around his neck. I'd call that suspicious.
We meant before the murder, Cousin Fiona?
Before? Let me think. I don't know if this is the sort of thing you mean, but...
Yes?
It was right after we were told about the new will and had all gone upstairs. I was walking past that secretary's door when I heard her and the housekeeper inside. They were speaking quite loudly, so I couldn't help but overhear.
What are you doing in my room, Mrs. Trent?
I was checking each of the guest rooms to make sure there are extra blankets in each. I'm sure you're very pleased with yourself, Miss Collins.
Why do you say that?
It all worked out just as you planned.
I don't know what you mean.
I think you do. I understand now why you brought in all those magazines in from town and left them conveniently around where Mr. Starkweather would find them. You've done it for months.
What magazines?
Don't play dumb, Miss Collins. All those news articles in scientific journals, I've seen them. They all had one thing in common. Articles about cloning. I didn't understand until tonight, but now it's obvious to me what you were doing. You planted the idea inside of Mr. Starkweather's head to clone himself.
So what if I did? There's no laws against sharing ideas now, are there?
I'm sure your lawyer friend would say no, since you're in this together, but that doesn't make what you're planning to do right. I think what you're gonna do is monstrous.
To be perfectly frank, I couldn't care less about what you think. Get out!
Giving orders already, are we? Well, I'll leave, but remember one thing, young lady. You're not Queen Bee yet. and you won't be until Mr. Starkweather's name is on that dotted line. Assuming that ever happens.
Kathy told me about Mrs. Trent's accusations. That she engineered the cloning business, possibly with my help? It appears Mrs. Starkweather reported their conversation accurately, which is something of a surprise.
Well, did you, though? Did you give Grandfather the idea to clone himself?
I don't think that's relevant to the case at hand, Simon. And even if it is, we weren't breaking any laws. Don't you agree, Mr. Davis?
No laws that I can think of.
Then shouldn't we focus on the law that was broken? I'm referring to the murder, of course.
You're right as usual, Miss Van Zandt. Can you volunteer any information that might be able to help us?
I will tell you this. Earlier this evening, I was going downstairs to the kitchen to ask Minerva for a pot of coffee. It was apparent Kathy and I were going to be working late, and I thought the caffeine might help us stay awake. Minerva wasn't there, but Rufus was. He was talking to Fiona Starkweather. Their conversation was very peculiar.
Good heavens, Rufus! What are you doing with that axe?
Well, I brought it in from outside to dry it off. I sharpened it up, too. Want to see?
Goodness, no! Put it away!
Maybe I better. Before it hurts someone. Or even kills them.
That's a horrible thought!
Isn't it, though? I get those sometimes. Do you?
I
see you still got your poison pills.
Digitalis isn't a poison. It's a stimulant. You just have to be careful not to take too many.
Well, you saw a lot more in your bottle when I saw you downstairs. Oops. Hope you haven't gone and overdosed. Think I can figure out how to do some of that mouth-to-mouth stuff?
If you bring those lips any closer, I'll snatch that axe out of your hand and chop them off.
Just trying to help, Miss Starkweather.
Well, don't. There are fates worse than death. However, I assure you, I'm fine. I spilled the pills earlier in the living room, and I wasn't able to find them all.
Well, I hope Minerva don't find none. She fixes all of Mr. Starkweather's meals, and she's mighty mad at him right now.
What are you suggesting?
Oh, nothing. Did you need something from the kitchen?
I came down to see if Minerva had any of those delicious hors d'oeuvres left over.
Well, I can check.
Never mind. I seem to have lost my appetite.
Mr. Starkweather's meals. What do you want to know about them?
Who did he dine with? Did he eat the same food as everyone else?
Look, Mr. Starkweather was on a very restricted diet. Low salt, low fat, so obviously I had to prepare his meals separately. Why do you want to know about the food? Do you think there's something wrong with my cooking?
You're a great cook, Minerva. That leg of lamb you served tonight was wonderful.
Yes, well, I've often been told I have terrific legs. So, what's the problem?
Forget about it. You told me what I need to know. Do you remember who was in the kitchen when the circuit breaker tripped and the lights went out? Before I got there, I mean.
The blackout? I'm not sure. I was checking the supplies before breakfast in the pantry. When it went dark, I managed to grab the candle from my pocket and light it.
Minerva, Nancy, is everyone all right?
I'm here, and I'm fine. I was out back when I saw the lights go out.
I was in my room when everything went dark. What happened?
Bensonhurst forgot to pay the light bill.
Keep that up and I'll forget to pay your wages.
What in blazes is going on?
Obviously, the power went out. See, my candles did come in handy.
Remind me to give you a gold star later. Bensonhurst, can't you get the electricity back on?
That's what I came to find out. Mr. Bensonhurst?
The circuit breaker is over here.
I hope they hurry. I don't like the dark.
Well, was that quick enough for you? I'll get back to my chore.
What did he come in here for? The idiot tracked water all over my clean floor.
Yeah, why Mr. Starkweather doesn't fire him, I'll never know.
Oy. Any luck?
Yeah, it was there all right. It should be enough to pinpoint our murderer, but I wish I had more. It could take weeks to get the results, and if that will gets probated and our killer gets his or her inheritance, they could disappear for good. It would be easy enough to buy a new identity for millions of dollars. There should be some way that I can nab the guilty party tonight.
Yeah, I wish we could have learned more from interrogating the suspects.
Yeah, they were so busy trying to make each other look guilty that they didn't really tell us much about themselves. Sometimes it's the slightest... Simon, move your feet.
Wait, what? Why?
Here, on the floor, I think it's... Yes. What they were doing at the time was so insignificant, I barely noticed it. Simon, I know who murdered your grandfather.
What? Really? Who?
I'll tell everyone as soon as I gather the evidence. Tell Bensonhurst I need to meet everyone in here immediately.
Yes, sir.
Minerva sent me in here to see if you'd like a pot of coffee.
Just forget about that for now. Go upstairs and get everybody down here.
Yes, sir.
I don't think the police chief will mind me using the sandwich bag to gather evidence. I don't think he'll mind at all.
I told you we're gonna tell you in a second.
I was just in the middle of an episode of
Who is
Bubblegum.
interrupting my beauty sleep?
Thank you for coming, everyone. Please, take a seat.
Ow, that hurt. Dragon lady.
Mr. Davis, it's very late. Or very early, depending on how you look at it. If nobody else is going to ask, I will. Why did you call us together at this hour?
It is very late, isn't it? But I figured you would all rest easier knowing who killed Simon Starkweather.
You mean you've discovered who's killed Great Uncle Simon?
I have, as I'm going to show you in the next several minutes.
I'm amazed, Mike. How'd you figure it out?
First, I had to answer the question that had bothered me since the beginning. It would have been so easy to make it appear that Mr. Starkweather had died of natural causes, a suggestion Jordan Starkweather made to Miss Withers. For example, Mrs. Starkweather, or her son, could have given him some of her digitalis to trigger a heart attack. Many of you could have done this had you known that she had left some on the floor of this room, no doubt when she spilled them earlier this evening. Miss Withers could have achieved the same results by injecting an air bubble into his bloodstream. Again, any of you could have done this by stealing a hypodermic needle from her room. Finally, I'm sure many of you considered the possibility of scaring Mr. Starkweather to death. Minerva with the knife, Miss Thompson with the gun, Rufus with the axe, Bensonhurst with the wrench. So why then would the killer put the blood pressure cuff around Mr. Starkweather's neck and inflate it until he's strangled to death? The answer is so obvious, I feel foolish for not realizing it sooner.
Might one ask what that is?
Obviously, when the blood pressure cuff was put around Mr. Starkweather's neck, he was already dead.
What?
Isn't that right, Miss Van Zant?
What?
You really are very clever, Mr. Davis.
It had to have been you. We were in here together when the lights went out. I went to check on Bensonhurst, and you went to go check on Mr. Starkweather. I'm guessing his killer slipped into Miss Withers' room moments before you arrived.
That's what I figured too.
But why would you put the cuff around his neck?
As our able detective here has surmised, Mr. Starkweather's killer made it seem as if he had a heart attack. Death seemed to have indeed been due to natural causes. There was no doubt in my mind, however, that someone in this house had killed him. I knew that under the circumstances, the coroner's office would have no reason to perform an autopsy, nor would the police conduct an investigation. I wasn't about to let my employer's murderer get away scot-free. I noticed the blood pressure cuff on the bed, so I put it around his neck and inflated it before wheeling him into this room.
And your plan worked. No one would question the fact that he'd been murdered.
So young Master Starkweather hired Mr. Davis to find the killer.
Which I have. That was very naughty of you, Miss Van Zant. Your little ploy distracted me from the main problem at hand. Instead of focusing on who did it, I kept on wondering why they did it that way. Once I solved that piece of the puzzle, the rest was easier.
Sorry, Mr. Davis, but if you've discovered the identity of the murderer, then the ends seem to have justified the means.
I suppose they have. The police may even overlook the fact that you're guilty of tampering with evidence at a crime scene.
And if not, I'm on very good terms with the local judges.
Wait, how do we know Miss Van Zant didn't just kill Great Uncle Simon herself?
No motive.
Oh, yeah.
Well, don't keep us in suspense, Mike. Tell us who did kill Mr. Starkweather.
I'll do better than that. I'll show you. Bear with me.
Oh, what now?
I'm guessing you all still have the candles that Mrs. Trent distributed earlier tonight. Please, take them out and light them.
Oh, isn't this nice? Very Christmassy.
When I first examined Mr. Starkweather's body, I noticed what on first inspection appeared to be a few red drops of blood. They turned out to be another substance entirely. I forgot about them for the time being. Later, while I was interrogating you, I noticed one of you scraping one thumbnail against the other. I took it as a nervous gesture. Nerves triggered by guilt, as it turns out. I didn't realize the significance of that gesture until I recalled Minoiva's testimony about those of you who gathered in the kitchen. And that's when I noticed these on the floor by the sofa. Thin scrapings of red tallow. Tallow from the killer's thumbnail. Tallow that matched the red drops on Mr. Starkweather's body. Tallow the killer was holding when she murdered Mr. Starkweather. Tallow from the one red candle among you in the hands of Nancy Pollard.
What? Nancy? There may have been other red candles.
There aren't. I remember thinking last Christmas when we were taking them down, we'd have to buy new ones for the next year.
Is this the only evidence you have to offer the police? This candle?
No, Nancy, I have much more than that. You see, I just examined Mr. Starkweather's body. As I was walking around the room, I was glancing at everyone's fingernails. And I noticed a few small scratches on your wrist. Made by Mr. Starkweather, no doubt, as he struggled for his life. I'll bet my reputation that these skin samples I was able to collect from under his fingernails match your DNA. It should be easy enough to prove. I've met plenty of experts on DNA testing over the last several months.
Bravo, Mr. Davis.
Well?
I don't suppose you'd consider cloning those scrapings and putting the new me in prison, would you? I didn't think so. Well, Miss Van Zant, I guess my biggest mistake was trying to cross a lawyer. I may have caused you to lose access to Mr. Starkweather's billions, but you definitely got your revenge.
Why don't you tell us what happened?
I might as well. You figured out the main details anyways. I was furious with Mr. Starkweather for building up our hopes, especially Jordan's, and then dashing them to the ground. I figured a man that cruel doesn't deserve to live. I waited in the hall outside his room and went in when I was sure he was alone. He was sitting in his wheelchair, still awake. Then I went to him, gripped the sides of his wheelchair, and went right down into his face. I told him I thought what he was planning to do was monstrous. I told him he didn't deserve to live. I told him I was going to kill him. Then I reached for his throat. He was terrified. He wheeled backwards in his chair and went crashing into his bedside table. The impact sent the reading lamp crashing down with the water pitcher right on top of it. When the water hit the lamp, it short-circuited and blew a circuit breaker.
Then you didn't cause the blackout deliberately.
No, and it nearly ruined everything, but I had the candle and lighter in my pocket. I managed to light the candle and hold it with one hand while I reached for his mask off his wheelchair with the other. I clamped the mask hard over his mouth and nose. He couldn't breathe, of course. He made a feeble attempt to fight back with one hand while frantically ringing the bell with the other. He wasn't able to do much except make a few insignificant scratches on my wrist, as you've noticed. That and caused me to drop a few drops of red candle wax on his robe. I don't know if he died of suffocation or a heart attack, but it was all over in a matter of seconds. The old man wasn't able to do much, but I guess it was enough to pin his murder on me.
And then what happened?
I blew out my candle, put it in my pocket, and went into Miss Wither's connecting room. Her back was to me. She had just found her candle and had managed to light it. I grabbed the brass candlestick off her bureau and struck her on the head with it. She went crashing down and her candle went out. I assume this is when you were turning my apparent natural death into an apparent murder, Miss Van Zant. I slipped into the hall, and a few moments later I heard Miss Collins scream. I ran in with the rest of you as you came in here.
I'm sure you were just as surprised as the rest of us when you saw the blood pressure cuff around Mr. Starkweather's neck.
I was, but what could I do? It was easy to guess what Miss Van Zant had pulled. I would have loved to kill you too, but I didn't dare try. Until now. Don't anybody move. I don't have anything to lose now.
Easy now. You don't want to do anything you might regret.
Too late for that advice, Mr. Davis. Get up. You're coming with me. Where could we go? The bridge is still washed out. I know where the log is that Simon had mentioned earlier. Simon, throw your keys on the table.
You'll never get away.
I think I might. All your cars are parked on this side of the streams, and the phone lines are still down. It'll take you hours to walk to town and notify the police. By then, I'll be long gone.
What about me?
I would have committed the perfect murder if it weren't for you. What do you think I'm gonna do with you?
Not a thing if I can help it.
Hold it right there.
Are you all right?
I'm fine.
You burned me.
Consider it a preview of the afterlife.
I always keep these on me. You never know when cuffs will come in handy.
Mike, remind me to pay you a big bonus.
Not a problem. You're going away for a long time. What do you have to say for yourself?
See you Visitors Day, Jordan?
Of course not.
Close the curtain, Miss Culpepper.
Good grief, what is it?
This important telegram came for you. They said it's urgent.
I'm sorry, but I better see what this is all about. Oh my, it seems it's from Mr. St. John. He's just come to from a drug-induced coma, and when he awoke, a fantastic solution to the play was crystal clear. Oh my, this is brilliant. I would have never thought of that one, but this ending is even better than any of the other endings he could have come up with. You'll simply just have to see it. Now, it'll take me a few moments to go over the changes with the cast, but I'm sure that they can handle it. Oh my, this is incredible. Oh, I see a clue that needs to go into the first act. So, I guess we'll just have to do the whole thing over again. Oh my.